The massive research vessel Horizon glided through the swirling amber atmosphere of Kepler 786b, its advanced sensors probing the planet's mysterious surface. Dr. J. Park hunched over the holographic display, her breath catching as strange readings flickered across the screen. "Captain," she called out, her voice trembling with excitement. "We've found something extraordinary." Sung Kim approached, his weathered hands gripping the edge of the monitoring station. Years of space exploration had taught him to be cautious, but the look in Jay's eyes suggested something truly unique. Beneath the planet's rocky surface, a network of intricate tunnels revealed themselves. Tiny, translucent creatures moved with a delicate precision that seemed almost impossible. They were the Xylara, a species so fragile that they looked like living crystal, barely larger than a human child. The creatures had developed an incredible underground civilization, hidden from the brutal predators that roamed their world. Their bodies were nearly transparent, with a complex internal structure that seemed to shift and adapt with every movement. Unlike most species that fought for survival, the Xylara had mastered the art of avoidance. "They're not fighting," Jay explained, zooming in on the holographic projection. "They're surviving. Look at how they move. It's like they can sense danger before it even arrives." A group of Xylara huddled together, their bodies almost melding into one another. Communication happened through subtle color changes and gentle vibrations that rippled through their collective form. They were prey in every sense of the word, small, seemingly defenseless with no apparent means of protection, but something caught Jay's attention. Beneath their fragile exterior, there was a complexity that defied simple classification. Their cellular structure was unlike anything she had ever seen, adaptive, flexible, with potential hidden just beneath the surface. Captain Kim studied the readings. "They've survived on this planet for thousands of years," he muttered, "surrounded by predators that should have wiped them out generations ago." As the Horizon continued its observation, a massive shadow passed over the underground network. Predator, a creature twice the size of a human with razor-sharp appendages and a hunger that seemed infinite, began to dig into the rocky surface. The Xylara didn't scatter. They didn't run. Instead, they moved with a synchronization that was almost mathematical. Their entire community shifted, channels and tunnels rearranging themselves in seconds. The predator's claws struck empty space, confused by the constantly changing landscape. "Incredible," Jay whispered. "They're not just surviving. They're evolving in real time." The ship's computer began cataloging the data. Cellular structures that could reshape themselves, a collective intelligence that worked with perfect coordination, survival mechanisms that defied traditional biological understanding. Captain Kim recognized the potential immediately. This wasn't just a discovery. This was an opportunity. "We need to make contact," he said firmly. Carefully, the Xylara remained, unaware of the massive ship hovering above their world. To them, survival was a delicate dance they had perfected over countless generations. They knew nothing of the humans who were about to change their entire existence. As the first probes descended towards the planet's surface, preparing for the most delicate first contact in human exploration history, Dr. J. Park couldn't help but feel a sense of wonder. The Xylara looked weak, they looked fragile, but something told her they were anything but defenseless. Something told her they were waiting to become something extraordinary. The planet's surface waited. The Xylara continued their intricate dance of survival, and humanity stood on the precipice of a discovery that would reshape the understanding of life itself. The research station hummed with an electric anticipation. Dr. Hai Kim stood motionless, her eyes locked on the genetic sequencing display. Strands of Xylara DNA twisted and turned, revealing secrets that seemed to defy biological understanding. "This is impossible," she muttered, her fingers tracing the complex molecular patterns. Beside her, senior researcher Dae Choi watched the data stream. The Xylara's genetic code was unlike anything they had ever seen. Where most species had fixed genetic structures, these creatures possessed something remarkable, a blueprint of pure adaptability. Initial tests had shown something extraordinary. When exposed to different environmental stressors, Xylara cellular structures didn't just resist, they transformed. A sample exposed to extreme cold would gradually develop new protective layers. Another subjected to radiation would subtly shift its internal composition. It's like they're alive in a way we've never understood, Day observed, zooming into a microscopic view of the cellular mutation. The research team worked around the clock. Hundreds of controlled experiments revealed layer after layer of the Xylara's hidden potential. Their bodies were living computers constantly processing and adapting to environmental information. A young technician named Jisoo brought in a new set of samples. Under her careful hands, she placed a Xylara tissue sample into a high-pressure chamber. The entire research team watched with held breath. The first minute showed no change. Then something incredible happened. The tissue began to compress, then expand. Its molecular structure shifted, creating internal reinforcements that absorbed the pressure. Where any other biological material would have been crushed, the Xylara sample remained not just intact, but fundamentally altered. Dr. Kim's hands were shaking. "Do you understand what this means?" she asked Day, her voice a mixture of excitement and scientific wonder. The implications were staggering. The Xylara weren't just a species that survived. They were a living example of evolution in its most dynamic form. Their genetic code was a blank canvas capable of rewriting itself in real time. Military researchers began to take notice. Initial reports suggested that with proper guidance, these creatures could become something unprecedented. Not just survivors, but adaptable warriors capable of surviving in environments that would kill most known species. Imagine, one military strategist noted during a closed briefing, a species that can modify itself to survive any planetary condition, any combat scenario. The ethical debates were intense. Some argued that modifying the Xylara would be a form of biological manipulation. Others saw it as an opportunity to help a species that had been perpetually vulnerable. More experiments followed. Radiation tests, pressure tests, temperature extremes. The Xylara didn't just survive, they learned. Each test revealed new layers of their incredible potential. Dr. Kim discovered something even more fascinating. The Xylara's adaptive capabilities weren't just physical. Their neural networks seemed to store and process information in ways that human scientists could barely comprehend. A simple memory test showed that a Xylara sample could learn and adapt its neural pathways after just a few exposures. Where human brains took years to form complex connections, these creatures did it in moments. "They're not just changing," Day whispered during one late-night session. "They're evolving in real time." The research station became a beacon of scientific excitement. Teams worked around the clock, each discovery more incredible than the last. The Xylara were no longer just a species. They were a scientific marvel. As the first phase of research concluded, one thing became clear. The Xylara weren't weak. They weren't victims. They were a species waiting to be understood, waiting to show the universe the true meaning of survival. And humanity had just discovered the key to unlocking their potential. The training facility looked like nothing special from the outside, a massive orbital platform that seemed almost too quiet. Inside, something extraordinary was happening. Instructor Min Park watched the first batch of enhanced Xylara move across the training floor. Where they once trembled, now they moved with purpose. Each creature had been carefully modified, their genetic structure refined to create something entirely new. The transformation wasn't just physical, it was complete. Kira, one of the lead Xylara trainers, demonstrated their new capabilities. Her body shifted like liquid metal, muscles realigning in seconds. What once took hours of adaptation now happened in moments. She could change her body's density, redirect energy, and respond to threats faster than any known species. "Watch carefully," Min instructed the observation team. A series of holographic threats appeared. Weapons fire, physical obstacles, environmental challenges. The Xylara didn't just respond, they anticipated. Their bodies became living shields, absorbing and redistributing energy. Where a single Xylara once would have been destroyed, Now they moved as a perfect, synchronized unit. The military observers were stunned. Dr. Hai Kim, who had been part of the initial genetic research, watched with a mixture of scientific excitement and moral complexity. These weren't just enhanced creatures, they were a new form of life. Training modules became increasingly complex. The Xylara learned combat techniques that would take humans years to master. They absorbed information like living sponges, their neural networks creating instant connections, a weapon demonstration, a tactical simulation. Each experience became instant knowledge. They're not just learning, one researcher noted. They're evolving with each moment. The transformation went beyond physical capabilities. The Xylara developed a collective intelligence that was both terrifying and beautiful. They could communicate through subtle molecular vibrations, sharing information faster than any computer system. Minpark pushed them harder. Survival scenarios, combat simulations, environmental extremes. The Xylara adapted, transformed, survived. Their bodies could now generate protective layers in milliseconds. Radiation became meaningless. Extreme temperatures were nothing more than a slight inconvenience. They could modify their cellular structure to become nearly invisible, or dense enough to stop high-caliber weapons. But it wasn't just about physical transformation. The Xylara were developing something unexpected. Personality. Purpose. A sense of identity that went beyond their previous existence as a prey species. During one training session, a group of Xylara worked to rescue a simulated wounded teammate. They moved with a precision that showed more than just learned behavior. They showed care, understanding, something close to emotion. They're more than weapons, Kira explained to Min. They're a community. The military saw potential. The scientists saw a breakthrough. But something deeper was happening. The Xylara were becoming something entirely new. Weeks of training turned into months. Each day brought new discoveries. Their bodies could now generate energy fields, communicate across vast distances, adapt to environments that would kill most known species. But with each enhancement, a critical question remained. What would they become? Minpark watched as a group of Xylara completed their most challenging training module yet. They moved as 1. Individual yet connected, powerful yet precise. The galaxy had no idea what was coming. The transformation was complete. The Krell Collective's massive bioships emerged from subspace, their dark hulls blocking entire star systems. Millions of organic weapon platforms prepared to crush human-controlled territories. They had conquered 1,000 worlds. Humanity would be next. Captain Wu Li stood on the bridge of the human flagship Infinity, his hands steady. The communication screens showed the incoming fleet, hundreds of ships larger than entire planetary cities. The Krell believed their victory was certain. They were wrong. Deploy Xylara units, Wu commanded. First contact with the Krell fleet happened differently than anyone expected. Where traditional military forces would engage in direct combat, the Xylara moved like living shadows. Their bodies became liquid, shifting through weapon systems, neutralizing entire ship sections without firing a single traditional weapon. A Krell battleship suddenly went dark. Then another. Then 10 more. The Xylara didn't just fight. They became the environment. They transformed weapon systems into useless metal. They redirected energy attacks. They moved through electronic systems like living information. One Xylara warrior named Sarah could transform her body into a complex communication disruptor. Another named Kai could generate electromagnetic fields that rendered enemy weapons ineffective. They weren't soldiers. They were living weapon systems. The Krell commanders watched in horror as their most advanced battleships became nothing more than floating metal coffins. Their weapon systems simply stopped working. Their communication networks collapsed. Impossible. One Krell commander screamed, watching entire fleet sections go silent. The Xylara moved with a precision that defied traditional combat understanding. They didn't just fight. They adapted. They became whatever was needed in that exact moment. A shield, a weapon, a communication system, a repair mechanism. Captain Wu Li watched the battle unfold like a complex dance. The Xylara units moved between ships through energy fields across vast distances. They weren't just fighting, they were rewriting the rules of galactic warfare. Entire Krell fleet sections began to surrender, not because they were defeated, but because they couldn't understand what was happening. The human Xylara force didn't just win, they transformed the very concept of conflict. Tactical displays showed something unprecedented. The Xylara were learning from each moment of combat. Each interaction became instant knowledge. They were evolving faster than the enemy could respond. A Krell mothership, a massive construct that had destroyed entire civilizations, suddenly went completely silent. Internal systems collapsed. Weapon platforms became useless. The ship was alive, but completely neutralized. Protocol Chimera is working, a tactical officer reported. The battle wasn't just about destruction, it was about complete system transformation. The Xylara didn't kill. They repurposed. They adapted. They changed entire technological ecosystems with a thought. Some Xylara warriors could generate complex energy fields that could shut down entire computer systems. Others could modify their body composition to become living communication networks. They shared information faster than any computer, adapted faster than any weapon system. Hours became minutes. Minutes became moments. The Krell Collective, a force that had conquered thousands of worlds, was being defeated by a species they once considered nothing more than prey. Captain Wu Li watched the final moments of the conflict. The Xylara weren't just winning. They were showing the galaxy something new, a different way of existing, a different way of resolving conflict. Total system neutralization complete, the tactical display showed. The galaxy watched in stunned silence. Humanity had not just found a weapon, they had discovered a new form of intelligent life. A species that could become anything, do anything, adapt to anything. The conflict was over. The Galactic Council chamber fell silent as Ambassador Ri Kim stepped forward. Representatives from 1,000 different civilizations watched with a mixture of fear and curiosity. Behind her stood the Xylara, no longer the weak species they once were, but something entirely new. "We did not conquer," Ri Kim began, her voice calm and clear. "We helped them become what they were always meant to be." The story of the Xylara had spread across the galaxy like wildfire. A species once considered nothing more than prey had become the most adaptive force in known space. Their transformation wasn't just biological, it was philosophical. Delegates from the Krell Collective sat in stunned silence. Their massive, intimidating forms looked almost diminished beside the fluid, adaptive Xylara warriors. Where once they were conquerors, now they were listeners. The Xylara representatives moved with a grace that defied description. Their bodies shifted subtly, sometimes translucent, sometimes solid, always changing. They weren't just watching the meeting, they were part of it. Sarah, one of the lead Xylara diplomats, demonstrated their unique communication abilities. Without speaking, she projected complex diplomatic negotiations directly through molecular vibrations. Entire conversations happened in moments. Layers of meaning transferred faster than any spoken language. "They are not a weapon," Captain Wu Li explained to the council. "They are a solution." The transformation went beyond physical capabilities. The Xylara had developed a collective intelligence that understood conflict at its most fundamental level. They didn't seek to destroy. They sought to understand, to adapt, to resolve. Scientific presentations showed how the Xylara could transform entire planetary ecosystems. Worlds that were once uninhabitable could be reshaped. Environmental challenges became opportunities. Where other species saw limitations, the Xylara saw potential. One delegate from a silicon-based civilization asked the critical question, "What stops them from becoming a threat?" Ri Kim smiled. "Their greatest strength is their understanding. They adapt, but they do not conquer." The Xylara demonstrated their capabilities. A barren moon became a living ecosystem in moments. Toxic atmospheres were transformed. Broken technologies were rebuilt. They didn't just survive. They healed. Dr. Hai Kim, who had been part of their initial genetic research, watched with a mixture of pride and wonder. The creatures she had first studied in a small research station had become something beyond imagination. The council representatives saw something unprecedented. The Zilara weren't just a new species. They were a new approach to existence, adaptive, cooperative, transformative. "We offer partnership," Sarah communicated, her body generating complex holographic presentations, not conquest. The meeting lasted hours, but for the Zilara it was a moment. They could compress time, understand multiple perspectives simultaneously. What would take humans days of negotiation happened in moments of molecular communication. Smaller civilizations that had lived in fear suddenly saw hope. The Zilara showed them that weakness could become strength, that adaptation was possible, that survival wasn't about fighting, but understanding. Captain Wu Li stepped forward. "The Zilara are not our weapon," he told the council. "They are our partners, our teachers." As the meeting concluded, something had changed. The galaxy looked different. The power dynamics had shifted, not through violence, but through understanding. The Zilara stood together, individual yet connected, powerful yet peaceful. They had transformed from the galaxy's weakest species into its most fascinating potential. A new chapter had begun, not with a battle,